Hello and welcome to my Specialization Introduction Outdoor Content Guide for the Outlaw Rogue in World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth. If you haven't watched the primer video for this series, I recommend you do that now. There'll be a link in the description below and that'll get you up to speed on what we're doing in this video. So we're here on our Outlaw Rogue. We've got our action bars visible and empty. If we go into our talent tree, these are the talents you can select to fulfill the requirement laid out in the primer video. And before we get into our spell book, I wanted to talk quickly about stealth. So rogues have access to an alternative stance they can be in called stealth. It's an instant cast ability to go into stealth. It has a 2-second cooldown, and this will put you into the shadows, allowing you to stalk enemies without being seen. So you can wander around, go between different enemies, and they won't really notice that you're there. If you get really close to an enemy that's your level, there is a chance that they will spot you and start attacking you. So you have to be kind of careful, but it is a really strong, almost 100% invisibility stance that you can go into. Now, the reason that's important is because the rogue does have some abilities that are only usable in stealth, and as we go through our spells, we'll be placing those on the bottom half of our miscellaneous abilities bars here, and then we will sort those out once we're done going through the rest of the stuff in our spellbook. So that's where we're headed now, into the spellbook to sort out our abilities. I won't be going in depth into every single one of these abilities, but I will give at least a brief description of what they do so you can understand why they're going where they are. So we're starting with Adrenaline Rush. This is a offensive cooldown ability. It increases the regeneration rate of one of our resources and gives us attack speed. Ambush is a stealth ability, so we'll put that over here, come back to it later. Between the Eyes is part of our core rotation. Blade Flurry is a combat utility ability, and what this does, it causes our single target attacks to hit and all nearby enemies for a portion of their regular damage for 12 seconds. So this basically lets us turn our single target abilities into multi-target abilities for a limited time. Blind is a crowd control ability. It incapacitates a target for 1 minute. Damage taken will cancel the effect. Cheap Shot is a stealth ability. Cloak of Shadows is a defensive cooldown you can use. It gives you a moment of magic immunity and removes all harmful magic effects from you and grants you protection against those effects for several seconds. Crimson Vial is a combat utility ability we're going to use pretty often. It's on a 30-second cooldown. It works like a health potion. It'll heal 30% of our maximum health. Dispatch is part of our core rotation. Distract is a combat utility ability. We're going to put it on the right-hand side here. You can use this while you're stealth or not. You're almost always going to use it in stealth, though. And this will just cause enemies to look the other way and be focused on a particular spot, so that this could help you to sneak by enemies. That's usually what you're going to use it for. Next, we have Feint. Feint is a combat utility ability. We can hit this anytime, every 15 seconds, and it will reduce damage taken from area of effect abilities by 40%. We can actually slide this over to the right. You're usually not going to use that too much in outdoor content because area of effect damage, you can just run out of it most of the time. Next, we have Gouge. Gouge is a crowd control ability. It incapacitates a target for 4 seconds, and then if that target takes damage, the effect is interrupted. You have to use it in front of your target, and it does generate some of our resources. Grappling Hook, this is a combat utility ability. We'll show it off real quick. You're just able to throw out a grappling hook, and it will pull you over to wherever you're targeted it at. Next, we have Kick. That is our interrupt ability. Goes in our crowd control. We can use that to interrupt spell casts. We have Pick Lock. That goes in miscellaneous. That gives us the ability to open locked doors and treasure boxes. Sometimes you will find, or other players will find, treasure boxes that need to be unlocked, and that's what Pick Lock lets us do. Pickpocket is a stealth ability. Pistol Shot is part of our core rotation. Riposte is a defensive cooldown, gives us a 100% parry chance for 10 seconds, and then as we parry the target, we will also reflect some damage back at them. Roll the Bones is part of our core rotation. Sap is a stealth ability. Shroud of Concealment is a stealth ability. Sinister Strike is part of our core rotation. Sprint is a combat utility ability. It's got a 1-minute cooldown. It gives us 70% increased movement speed for 8 seconds. We've got our Stealth. Tricks of the Trade is a combat utility ability we're probably not going to use very often. It redirects threat that you generate to a friendly target, and we're probably not going to use this in the open world very often, if at all. And then finally, we have Vanish. Vanish is a defensive cooldown that you can use normally when you are when you start combat. You're not able to go back into stealth until you're out of combat. Vanish puts you into stealth, which effectively makes it so that the enemies don't know that you're there. So this will get you out of combat. It will save you a lot of times. Also, when you get a little bit more experience, you can use Vanish as an offensive cooldown in order to, in mid-combat, go into stealth and use a powerful stealth ability against your enemy. But that's a little bit later on down the road, so for now, we're just going to consider it as a defensive cooldown. Okay, so that is all the abilities of the Outlaw Rogue. We need to talk about the resources available to the Outlaw Rogue so we can understand what these abilities do as we read them. So the Outlaw Rogue has access to 2 resources. The first one is this yellow bar here. It's called Energy. We start with 100 energy, and we are going to spend this on abilities. As we spend it, it will passively regenerate. Our second resource are these circles here that are empty right now. But these are called combo points. You start with no combo points. You could build up to 5 of them, and then you spend your combo points on finishing moves. So generally, the way the resource rotation works is you start with energy, you spend it on abilities that give you combo points, then you spend those combo points on finishing moves, and while you're doing that, your energy will regenerate so you can start that cycle all over again. Alright, so before we get into our core rotation, we're going to set up our stealth bar real quick. And something to note here is that when you are out of stealth, your 1 through equal sign here is its bar. And when you go into stealth, you have a separate bar for stealth. So anything you want to have down here, you're going to want to set up while you are in stealth, which is what we're going to do with these abilities here. If we look, when we're not in stealth, these are all grayed out because we can't use them. When we go into stealth, they all light up. So on our 1 space here, we're going to put Ambush. This costs 50 energy. It does a bunch of damage to the target and awards 2 combo points. Next, we're going to put Cheap Shot. Cheap Shot will stun the target for 4 seconds and give you 2 combo points. Then we're going to add Sap. Sap will incapacitate a target that's not in combat for 1 minute. It only works on humanoids, beasts, demons, and dragonkin. Any damage done will cause the target to come back out of being sapped, and this lasts, or you can have this cast on 1 enemy. So we'll show this off later. It's very handy for getting through areas where you think that people are going to notice you with your stealth. It's also good for eliminating a target from combat until you're ready to fight them, but we'll show that off later. Next, we have Pickpocket. Pickpocket will pick the target's pocket. You can find all kinds of stuff in there. You can find like gray vending items. You can find currency. You can steal people's food. It really varies depending on the area that you're in and the type of enemy you're using it on. And then finally, we have Shroud of Concealment. This is an ability on a 6-minute cooldown. It's kind of a combat utility ability. It gives stealth to party and raid members within 30 yards of you for 15 seconds. So as long as they stay in the radius of the shroud, they're stealth as well. So you can actually get through areas with your whole party stealth, even if they aren't able to normally stealth. Okay, so back out here, when we are not stealthed, we're going to take a look at our core rotation. All right. So when we start out, we're probably going to be in stealth before we start combat. Once you use an ability in stealth that deals damage, you are taken out of stealth. So you usually have to pick the one ability you want to use while you're in stealth when you start combat. So if I go up to a target and I use cheap shot, it's going to take me out of stealth, and I'll no longer be able to use any of these abilities because they all require stealth. So, as an Outlaw Rogue, what we want to do is, when we're in stealth, we want to cast Ambush. This is going to hit our target for a fair amount of damage and give us 2 combo points. It's also going to take us out of stealth, and then we have access to our other abilities here. So we'll have 2 combo points from Ambush. We want to build up more combo points to use our finishing moves. We're going to do that mainly by casting Sinister Strike. This ability costs 45 energy. It does an okay amount of damage to the target, has a 35% chance to hit a second time, and will award us 1 combo point. So we want to cast this. We have the chance to get 2 strikes out of it. We get a combo point. We're going to use this to build up combo points to cast our finishing moves. Now, this has an added effect that when it hits the second time, it will make your next pistol shot half cost and double damage. Pistol shot is the only other ability that we can use to build up our combo points. The pistol shot will draw a concealed pistol and fire a quick shot at the enemy, dealing 525 physical damage and reducing their movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. So, when we get that second strike of the Sinister Strike, our next pistol shot, instead of costing 40 energy, will cost 20, and it will deal double damage. So the way this is going to work is we're going to cast Ambush for 2 points. We're going to start casting Sinister Strike, and we're going to ignore Pistol Shot unless we get that proc from Sinister Strike that makes it half cost and double damage. In that case, we will hit Pistol Shot. It's going to flash yellow, and you're going to see some effects from that. So as we're building up these combo points, we're eventually going to get to 5, and that's when we're going to want to start using our finishing moves. Now, the way finishing moves work is they will all consume 1 to 5 combo points based on the amount you currently have. So if you have 5, they'll use 5. If you have 1, they'll use 1. It's not random. It's entirely based. They will use all the combo points you have. And the more combo points you use, the better effect you get from the finishing move. So we're going to take a look at our dispatch here. This is a pretty simple one. It costs 35 energy. It'll use 1 to 5 combo points. It deals damage per combo point. So if you have 1 combo point, it does 523 damage, which is not a lot. If you have 5 combo points, it does 2,615 damage, which is a pretty significant amount. So, the more combo points you have when you use your finishing moves, the better. So, as we build up these combo points, what are we building towards? Well, we want to build towards Roll the Bones. Roll the Bones is a finishing move. It rolls the dice of fate, providing a random combat enhancement. That enhancement will last longer depending on how many combo points you have. If you use this with 1 combo point, your buff will stay up for 12 seconds. If you use it with 5 combo points, it'll stay up for 36 seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to cast Roll the Bones, and we're going to get some sort of a combat buff, and then based on what that combo buff is, that'll kind of help us determine what we're going to do next. Now, the other ability we have, finishing move, is Between the Eyes. This has a 30-second cooldown, costs 1 to 5 combo points, and it deals damage and stuns the target. So with 1 combo point, it'll deal a measly 270 damage and stun the target for 1 second. But at 5 combo points, it does a pretty decent 1,350 damage and stuns the target for 5 seconds. Now, the critical strikes that you get with Between the Eyes deal 4 times the normal amount of damage. So if you use Between the Eyes with 5 points and it critically strikes, instead of doing 1,350, it does almost, or like, it does over 5,000 damage, which is a huge number. Huge. So you want to try to get a critical strike with Between the Eyes as often as possible. Our Dispatch is the finisher move that we use when our Between the Eyes is on cooldown and we have a nice buff from Roll the Bones, so we don't want to recast those, or we can't, so that's when we use Dispatch. So let's go down and take a look at how this is going to play out. So we start out in stealth, and we're going to go up and we're going to ambush the target. Alright, that gives us our 2 combo points. We're going to cast Sinister Strike. And you can see right here we got Pistol Shot. We have a few seconds to use it. We don't want to use Pistol Shot if we have full combo points, because it generates a combo point, and that combo point would be wasted. So when we see that pop up, we're at 5 points, we would want to use one of our finishing moves right away. Alright, so when we've built up our 5 combo points, we're going to want to cast Roll the Bones. That's going to give us a buff here. And our buffs, there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different buffs we can get. This one is Broadside. Your combo point generating abilities generate 1 additional combo point and deal 20% increased damage. So now, if we Sinister Strike, it'll give us 2 combo points guaranteed. Okay? Then we could go into our Between the Eyes or our Dispatch. Now, generally with Between the Eyes, you want to use this when you have a specific buff from Roll the Bones. You can use it anyway, but it's better just to cast Dispatch and get that damage in. Alright, so let's build up our 5 points again. And we're going to cast Roll the Bones. This time we got Buried Treasure. Our energy regeneration is increased by 4 per second. We can use our Pistol Shot for double damage. We're building up to our Dispatch again. Cycle through, build back up. Use our Dispatch. Now, at any time, you can cast Roll the Bones again to get a different buff. And every time you cast Roll the Bones, there's a chance that you will get 2 buffs, like we have here. So we have Broadside again. Now we also have Grand Melee. Our attack speed is increased by 55%, and we get 25% leech. So what we're going to do is we're going to cast Roll the Bones until we get the correct buff that we want to use for Between the Eyes, so we can show that off. Got Broadside again. Alright, this is another one we haven't seen. Skull and Crossbones. Sinister Strike has an additional 30% chance of striking an additional time, so now it has a 65% chance to hit and give us that proc for our Pistol Shot. Alright, we got our Grand Melee again. Let's build back up. It does not want to, it's giving me like every single buff except for the one that I want here. Oh my goodness, there it is. Okay, that took forever. I'm going to cut some of that out. So when you get this buff here, Ruthless Precision, you're going to want to build up your combo points and use Between the Eyes. Critical strike chance of Between the Eyes increased by 60%. Critical strike chance of all other abilities increased by 20%. So this almost guarantees that your Between the Eyes will crit for a massive amount of damage. Okay, cool. So if that was a weird jump there, that's because it literally took forever for that one buff to show up. Man, okay, so... that is the rotation for the Outlaw Rogue, alright? You go up, we're going to ambush, we're going to Sinister Strike, use our Pistol Shot if we get the proc for it, Roll the Bones, get a buff. Based on the buff that we get, we're going to get some nice perks. Then we're going to go into Dispatch. If we do happen to get our Shark Fin buff from Roll the Bones, then we'll want to use our Between the Eyes. If not, then just focus on using Dispatch to kill the enemy. Alright. So that is the base rotation for the combat, or the Outlaw Rogue. Used to be combat. The Outlaw Rogue. So the next thing we want to do is we want to get into our talent tree and create a build that's going to work well in outdoor content. So let's go ahead and set that up. Okay, so this is the build that I recommend you use on the Outlaw Rogue. It's not the only one you can use, but it's the one I recommend, and will be showing off at the end of this video. We're going to go through each talent, talk about why we have it, and how it contributes to the build. Starting with Quick Draw. Half cost uses of pistol shot, so that's the only time we're using pistol shot is when we get that half cost shot. So every time we use pistol shot, it will now generate an additional combo point and deal 50% more damage. So this means that every time we hit that half cost pistol shot, it's just going to hit harder. It's going to give us more resources. It makes it a much better ability to kind of ignore and only hit when it's shining. Then we have Hit and Run. This increases your movement speed at all times by 15%. So this is going to help us move faster in stealth, help us get from enemy to enemy. When we have those different buffs up, we're really going to want to take advantage of those. So being able to get from enemy to enemy while they're still up is going to be really important. Then we have Vigor. This increases your maximum energy by 50 and your energy regeneration by 10%. This is also going to help us take advantage of those buffs. It's going to help us build up our combo points faster, to use our finishing moves more often. All around, this is just going to help us stay sustained from enemy to enemy as well. Next, we have Iron Stomach. This increases the healing you receive from Crimson Vial, healing potions, and health stones by 30%. So now our Crimson Vial will heal us for 42% of our maximum health instead of 30%. So increased heal, that's going to be nice if we're taking on a bunch of enemies, or if we are, just trying to heal up in between fights. Next, we have Prey on the Weak. Enemies disabled by your cheap shot or between the eyes will take 10% increased damage from all sources for 6 seconds. So this does give you a reason to go ahead and hit between the eyes, even if you don't have the right buff from Roll the Bones, because you'll get that 10% increased damage from all sources. Alacrity, your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point, and we're casting them with 5 points, so 100% chance to grant 2% haste for 20 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So as we're using these abilities, we can get up to 10% haste, which is going to help us to attack faster, kill our enemies faster. And then finally, I almost never take long cooldown activated abilities in these open world content builds, but this one here, Killing Spree, is so ridiculous that I think it's worth taking. It has a 2-minute cooldown. It teleports you to an enemy within 10 yards. You attack with both weapons for a total of 5,736 physical damage over 2 seconds. That is a huge number. That is a ton of damage. If you have Blade Flurry active, which you have down here, that lets us strike all nearby targets for 45% of normal damage for 12 seconds. If you have Blade Flurry active, this will also hit all nearby targets for 100% damage. So with Blade Flurry, this is a ability that does a ridiculous amount of damage to everything around you. So this becomes a massive, massive ability that we can use. We'll put that into our offensive cooldowns, and that is the build. Now, our rotation doesn't really change too much from this. The only notable thing here is Prey on the Weak. So now, if we wanted to, we can go up to our target, and if we ambush, build up our combo points here, cast our Roll the Bones. We did not get the Shark Fin buff for Between the Eyes, but we can still go ahead and cast Between the Eyes, because now we will get our 10% damage buff on that target. So that makes it worth casting Between the Eyes every time, even if you don't get the right buff from your Roll the Bones. And that's pretty much it. And just for reference, let's go ahead. Our dispatch at 5 points does 2,615 damage. So let's see how much a 5-point dispatch does here. All right, 181,000. So let's use our Killing Spree. ridiculous. A ridiculous amount of damage. If we look at that, let's see, our killing spree hit for 66,000, 66,000, 33,000, 33,000, 66, 66, 33, 33, 33, 33, 33. Yeah, a lot of damage, a ton of damage. So that ability is insane. It's great to use on rare spawns and elites or big groups of enemies. Alright, so let's hop into the talent tree and quickly talk about the PvP talents you can take if you want to toggle on War Mode and mainly focus on PvE. First off, I recommend that you take Relentless. This will replace your Honorable Medallion with a passive ability that reduces the duration of all incoming crowd control effects by 20%. Nice set it and forget it ability. Then we have Drink Up Me Hearties. This gives you the ability to create Crimson Vials for allies and yourself. You can create a Crimson Vial to be shared with allies. A maximum of 3 can be carried at once. So now you can get 3 charges of your Crimson Vial. So you have a little bit more self-healing between fights or during fights. Next is Cheap Tricks. After coming out of blind, the target's chance to miss attacks is increased by 75% for 5 seconds. That's okay. We can utilize that. Blind is our 2-minute cooldown disorient ability, but more importantly, Between the Eyes reduces the energy cost of your pistol shot by 100% for 5 seconds. So, what happens is we build up, we do our roll of bones, we build up, we do our Between the Eyes, we get that 10% increased damage from prey on the weak, and then we get a free pistol shot to use right away. So we can pack more damage into that window, that 6-second window where we have the 10% increased damage after using Between the Eyes. And finally, Death from Above. This is a finishing move that has a 30-second cooldown. And basically what it does is it is a dispatch that does 10% more damage. So anytime you get the chance, you can use Death from Above, and then when it's on cooldown, go back to using Dispatch. When it comes off cooldown, use Death from Above. So just a nice additional ability, a little powered up finishing move you can use there. Alright, so the next thing to do is take this build out into the open world, show it off against a couple different types of enemies. Before I do that, I did want to mention one thing about the talent tree, and this is a little unusual. I don't really do this for these videos, but if for some reason, as you could see earlier, I was trying to roll the bones and get a particular buff, and it was just not giving it to me. If you really hate this whole roll the bones, try to get a particular buff randomness, you can take the talent Slice and Dice. It will replace Roll the Bones, and it just gives you a finishing move that will increase your attack speed and energy regeneration based on the number of points you spend. And then you could totally just take that entire thing, take that whole Roll the Bones things out of there, and you'll just be building up to cast Slice and Dice. That'll give you this attack speed and energy regen buff for 36 seconds, and then you can go in, use your Between the Eyes, use your Dispatch. So, that said, we're going to show off this version of the build that does use Roll the Bones, because I think Roll the Bones, as RNG and random as it is, still provides a lot of fun to the build and some variety. So we're going to take that out into the open world, show it off against some different enemies. So I will cut to that, and I'll see you there. Alright, so we're here in Suramar City, and we're going to fly down, show off the build against a couple different types of enemies. So we're going to do that. Remember, we want to be in stealth. Now, we showed the full rotation against the target dummy. Against actual real-world targets, chances are you're just going to do so much damage to them that going through that entire rotation is going to be kind of pointless. So, you're going to get your ambush in. If that didn't do enough to kill them, you're going to build up to 5 combo points. Cool thing about combo points is they persist from enemy to enemy. So we have 5 combo points right now that we could just drop on this guy. I would just use a Dispatch in that situation because getting the Roll the Bones buff and all that kind of stuff, like, it's not as relevant against a target that's going to die that fast. This guy over here can see through stealth, so We can still get over and try to ambush him before he hits us. Build up our points, use a dispatch. As you can see, we're doing, you know, quite a bit of damage to these targets. Got our free pistol shot. Might as well use it. If you are in between enemies for whatever reason... Oh, here we go. We can build up our points, switch targets, use our between the eyes, and stun someone. Get right in here. We got our... Go ahead and hit that. We got Sinister Strike, building up our combo points again into a dispatch. So for this group of enemies, you know, I didn't do the full rotation. I literally haven't used Roll the Bones at all against these targets. But where you're going to want to use Roll the Bones is against targets that have more health, like this guy here. Alright, so let's build up our combo points against this guy. We'll go ahead, we'll cast our Roll the Bones. We've got our Broadside, so our combo point generating abilities will generate extra combo points. Once we have our Roll the Bones out, we can focus on using dispatches. If we feel like using our between the eyes, we can use that as well, but there's no need. If you want to, at some point, you can re-roll your Roll the Bones and try to get a different buff if you think that's really going to help you against a particular target. But just keep in mind that every time you spend combo points on Roll the Bones, you're not spending those combo points on dealing damage. Now, for multiple targets here, so let's say we were going to fight all these, we could hit our Blade Flurry. Now our Sinister Strikes, our pistol shots and stuff, these are all going to hit all the targets around us for a limited amount of time, 12 seconds. And that will help us to deal damage to multiple targets. And that's pretty much it. So, what I do want to do, there's two things. I want to show off our Killing Spree. So for Killing Spree, if we want to hit all three of these targets, we're going to want to cast Blade Flurry into Killing Spree. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to put on Blade Flurry. We're going to cast Killing Spree. And as you can see, that basically just almost killed the demon. Basically killed the other two ads that we had there. And we were able to take those three characters out, including a big elite demon, with almost no problems, barely lost any of our health. So, very powerful ability. It's also very powerful against just a single target, because what it does is it splits the damage up based on the amount of targets that are around. So we can Blade Flurry again, we can Sinister Strike here, use our Dispatch. There we go, we took them out. The one case where you can use Pistol Shot without worrying about it, you know, being half price is if you really just want to pull a target over to you. Your Pistol Shot does have a 20-yard range, so that can help. So we're going to Roll the Bones. We've got our finishing moves that are going to reduce the cooldowns on a bunch of abilities. Go ahead and use our Between the Eyes, Dispatch, Pistol Shot, and we're good. Alright, so that's it. I hope that's helped you to understand the Outlaw Rogue a little bit better, giving you the confidence to get on your own Outlaw Rogue, get out there in the open world, start questing, leveling, farming, and see if this is a specialization you'd like to play in Battle for Azeroth. If you liked the video, thumbs up, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Keep encouraging me to make this type of content. I hope that you have a great time in BFA, and thank you for watching.